Pete Sousa Show from the Alico Building. Brought to you by Slovacics. Brought to you by Crawford Austin Properties. By the way, again, Gordon was in here earlier. Gordon Harriman. What's that show called?
Facing the Mirror.
It's called Facing the Mirror. It's me and Wesley.
He's a good guy.
Gordon is the best guy.
Both of them. Good guys.
I know Wesley kind of. I know Gordon is like, there's nothing better than Gordon Harriman. So, Facing the Mirror, check out that podcast. It's very, very, it's a way for you to get better. And
it's basically a therapy session between the two.
Yeah.
That he sends out to everybody in the world, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are they doing?
They're doing fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know numbers.
Okay.
You know, I haven't really looked. I don't look until you're probably 20, 30 episodes in.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter until then.
Mike.
I'm just saying it doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, you got to build is what I'm saying. You got to build your show.
Speaking of which, the payoff, Mike Hamilton is going to join me tomorrow. We're recording an episode. When we started the payoff with Pete, Stories of Sobriety, Mike was not sober. Mike is now sober.
In any way.
Mike is now sober for how many years? 3?
This is 3 years this month. Yeah.
3 years this month. So we're going to get that whole story out of Mike and make sure you listen to that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a big draw.
So, couple things I wanted to mention. I talked about Bill Belichick, and I'm starting to now look into the future, as we all are, because now we're at a time where, you know, a lot of these teams are 9 games in, these teams in the NFL. And the Saints just fired their coach today because they had lost 7 straight. In fact, let's take a look here. Okay. So the Patriots are 2-7, but, you know, they're obviously out of the Belichick sweepstakes, right? Let's see. The Browns are 2-7, but their coach is actually pretty good, Stefanski. They're not going to fire him. The Jaguars, they'll probably fire Doug Peterson. They're 2-7. Let's see. Check out the NFC. The Giants are 2-7. They could fire Brian Daboll, and that would be so crazy if Belichick went there. But I don't have enough. I'm not close enough to that situation to know. Panthers, they could fire their coach, but he's brand new. So we just mentioned the Saints. I believe that there's potential for Belichick to go a few places. One of the places I think would be really attractive for him and attractive for us as fans, and certainly attractive for folks out in Vegas, would be the Raiders. And the Raiders are 2-7. I left them off when I was reading about teams that suck because I wanted to kind of make this point. So Antonio Pierce is their head coach. He was an interim last year. He kind of got that interim pop that interim coaches get. You know, he's a player's coach and he's fiery, and he got the job done towards the end of last year. And then you evaluate that job over the offseason, and you get a lot of push from players in the organization and people who love Antonio Pierce because he's extremely likable and by all accounts was a great positional coach. But this is a different ballgame, being a head coach. And it's not to say he won't be at his next turn. And it's not to say the Raiders won't keep him and he'll turn shit around. But the way it looks right now is not going in the right direction. And if the Raiders continue to lose and spiral, and I looked at their schedule, there's probably, like, really, when you break it down, there's probably like 2 more games that they probably will win. So now what are you then? You're 4-15, or no, you're 4-13. So that's fireable. And especially when somebody who's part ownership in your group is Tom Brady, who, as we talked about here weeks ago on this show, people inside the Patriots organization have talked to folks outside of it, and the folks outside have conveyed the message that Tom Brady, people inside the Patriots organization who know Brady well have said one of his first priorities is to get Bill Belichick in there as the head coach for the Raiders. And boy, it would seem like the window is opening. Okay. Another reason why, if you're a Raiders fan, you are pulling for the Raiders to continue to suck right now. Shedeur Sanders, 2 words, Shedeur Sanders. And he will be At this point in time, it looks like the first quarterback taken. Well, Dylan Gabriel, maybe. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, I want to see some of these. I haven't talked to my boy McShay in a while. So we're going to go number one. Number one is Shedeur Sanders. I'm looking at some of these lists right now. Number two is Cam Ward. Then you got you're going down now. You got Gabriel and Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, but he is hands down the number one quarterback prospect. Mike, you're leaning over.
Well, no, I'm just saying I hadn't thought about the Brady Belichick.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's amazing.
It's very real.
Yeah, and if Dallas misses out on that,
Cameron and I have talked about that. Cameron Stewart, and we have mentioned that Brady had said one of his first articles of business would be getting Brady or getting Belichick at that pick. So now you got the Raiders and your fan base. You should be rooting for them to lose like if you were cheering for your NBA team to get the best opportunity in the lottery to get Patrick Ewing. Like, you have two opportunities in the offseason that could come out of you sucking as bad as you can for the rest of this year. I know it's hard, right? I know it's difficult, but Raiders fans, remember, if you continue to let that bottom drop out, right, you could get Shedeur Sanders and Bill Belichick in one fell swoop. Two generational opportunities, a generational coach and who could be a generational player. And here is the Shedeur Sanders case that I continue to make and will until the day I'm no longer here, or he retires, or is a complete bust. But let me keep going with this. He has got the mentality of a winning quarterback. If you watch him play this year, he'll never have a worse offensive line in the NFL than he does now. If he does, I would be shocked. And the way that he handles himself with that team as a leader, his attitude, all that matters is winning, right? He's been around it. You know, we talk about guys like Steph Curry, Patrick Mahomes. There's a couple others that are slipping my mind. Oh, Barry Bonds. Some of these incredible players are put in even a better position to be superstars because of their access to the game, because of their parents. The lights just aren't quite as bright if you've been hanging out at the ballpark since you were a little kid, or the football stadium, or the basketball arena. And I think that that's an opportunity that Shedeur Sanders can seize. Again, Raiders fans, I love you. I wear the gear. I've worn it since Al Davis and NWA were at the forefront of my life. That was my childhood. It was pretty wild. And when you talk about those two things and the Raiders apparel, I love to wear because I love the autumn wind, and I've been over that a million times. So I love the Raiders and Raiders fans, but you guys should really want to suck for the rest of the year. Okay. You got Bill Belichick, you got Shedeur Sanders just hanging out there. They could completely revitalize your entire organization. And oh, by the way, it's a sleeping giant because of where you are and that beautiful stadium. So, like, there's a big, you guys got your asses kicked by the Bengals yesterday. Okay. You fired your offensive coordinator. Okay. Like, it's all really moving in the right direction, whether you care to believe it or not. And that could be something. Mike, was that your phone? I thought you broke wind. That could be something that everybody takes advantage of and really enjoys. All right. Another thing I wanted to talk about this morning, and we haven't even gotten to Baylor. That's what Cam Stewart's for. I'm a Sixers fan, okay? I did public relations for the Sixers. Not for very long because I was very screwed up on alcohol and drugs, but I did. I had a cup of coffee, as you would say, 2-3 years doing PR for the Sixers. And during that time, I got to be close. One of the things about my job doing PR was that I got to be, especially in Philly, that I got to be around heroes of mine. And I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about sports writers. Phil Jasner, particularly, uh, one of the greatest basketball writers of all time, died of colon cancer in 2010. But I was able to like talk to Phil about all this stuff that had gone on with the Sixers, like past and present, right? And I had read him since I was a little kid. And there were other columnists who I got to know. One of those was Marcus Hayes. Marcus Hayes has been was a beat writer for a while for the Philadelphia Daily News, and now is a columnist. And Marcus Hayes, look, he's a great writer. The reason he's been a columnist in Philly for as long as he has been is because he's compelling. He does a good job of holding a lot of these people accountable. But unfortunately for Marcus Hayes and media members all over the country, he missed the mark on this story about Joel Embiid. Marcus Hayes in the first of all, Joel Embiid has not been playing because he's been injured. And that bleeds into my disdain for the Sixers organization right now, that guys are constantly not playing. When they are playing, they play like shit. You know, I'm still way too close to the fire with the Ben Simmons and like all of that. It's just like, I kind of like need a break from the Sixers. All right. Just as a fan, because I am one of the ultimate diehard fans for the Sixers. And Embiid, I love him, but he's always hurt. And I'm sorry, like that becomes an issue. And I'm not saying Joel Embiid's not the greatest guy in the world. I'm not saying that he's played through pain. I'm not saying that he's like faking injuries or being a wimp. No, I'm just saying that like Joel Embiid, when it all comes down to it, has not come through yet. So he doesn't get a pass on any of this stuff. So the fact that Marcus Hayes is calling Joel Embiid out for being out of shape is completely within his right. But when you say, like, Joel Embiid had a brother who died in a tragic accident, and Joel Embiid has been talking about dedicating his basketball career to his brother who died in an accident. Well, Marcus Hayes says, well, to be great at your career, you actually have to show up to work. And he put all that in together. You know, he put the part about Joel's brother first. Basically was like, you want to make your dead brother proud, get in shape, which is like, wow. So you kind of get inside baseball on the journalist side. Joel Embiid at a practice or shoot around, I guess, last week was kind of like, hey, has anybody seen like Marcus Hayes? Because Marcus had been ripping him, you know? And everybody's like, no, Marcus isn't here. So now if you're Marcus Hayes, as a sports writer, word gets back to you like, yo, like Joel like has been asking, was asking for you. So I don't care what Marcus Hayes tells anybody else. Like now he's like, okay, I actually have to go to the Sixers locker room after a game here soon and just be there for Joel Embiid to talk to. Like that's the journalist way. Jeff Pearlman has been on this podcast explaining it to us that's what he had to do after he wrote a Sports Illustrated article on John Rocker that painted Rocker as a racist, rightly or wrongly. That's up to you. But Pearlman said that was that was the story, you know, and I don't doubt that he was using all the journalistic integrity. What is that? Integrity in the world. Sorry, guys. So, but the next day or the next time the Yankees or the Mets were playing the Braves, maybe it was the next season, Pearlman knew he had to go into that Braves locker room and deal with John Rocker, who apparently almost wanted to kick his ass. So Marcus Hayes has to do the same thing on Saturday night after the Sixers lose to the Grizzlies. He's in the locker room, and Joel Embiid marches right up to him, and there begins a heated conversation that goes on for like, I think like 5 minutes. Somebody said like the real time on it. It was long, right? And it ended with Joel Embiid shoving Marcus Hayes. So, and this is where I get into like I get to judge because this is what I'm doing here. Like, okay, he didn't punch him. So, and he shoved him. Like, that's really not that bad. You know, and so did Marcus Hayes deserve physical contact? Absolutely not. But it happened. And it was a consequence of writing a story that went over the line. the best sports writers in the world, you can basically say, and that's what Joel Embiid had said to Marcus Hayes, like, say I suck at basketball, dude. Like, that's what was overheard, according to the sources that were close to that conversation, because it was out in the open, right? It was in the locker room. But it's like, you can say I suck. You can say I'm out of shape. You can say all this stuff about me. Don't ever talk about my dead brother and my family. And he's right. Like, he is. I can line them up from Tony Kornheiser to Bob Ryan to Phil Jasner to Stephen A. Smith. Great columnists over the years. I think to a man, they would all say Marcus Hayes went over the line there. And that's what you get when you go over the line. Like, we saw what happened to Mike Leslie last week, right? He didn't even do anything wrong. And a guy came out of the locker room. And by the way, I don't want to hear anybody for 1 minute say, oh, this is today's player. It's not today's player, dude. We just have more access. It was the same shit going on 20, 30 years ago. In fact, 50 years ago, women were coming into the locker room and being shamed for being there and getting run the hell out. Like, trust me, dude, it's gotten better. But we just see so much more now. There's so much more access that it's all there for us to see. But I really get very interested when stuff like this happens, because one, I was almost weirdly happy that it happened to a traditional sports writer both times recently. Marcus Hayes with the Philadelphia Daily News and a traditional sports reporter, Mike Leslie at WFAA. I was kind of like, oh, it's not. And right, look at me. I'm on a media network with a YouTube show that you can get on Spotify and Apple. But I like the traditional journalists, okay? What can I say? I still want to be able to read the newspaper. I still want to see Mike Leslie talking about the Cowboys locally. So yeah, that's there's some other stuff I'm not going to get to today. I'll have to do it tomorrow because I really want to talk to Cam about Baylor, which is coming right up after these messages, these words.
Hey, can I break in real quick?
Yeah.
Scotty, everything's good. Just wanted to give him a heads up and I know that nobody out there knows, but Scotty had a little health thing with his daughter. Everything's good, though.
Okay.
He just texted us, just letting you know.
Yeah.
Just in case he's listening, want to let him know that our thoughts are with him.
Yeah, well, then that is serious. But on that note, Cam, you go, yeah, our producer, Aaron Sexton, has had his struggles, but he's battled back. All right, we'll be right back after this.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.